Good evening. As usual, it's always a pleasure to be with you, my guests across the country, joining us here on Square Talk, your favorite Tuesday night program. Then, of course, I'll be bringing you information this evening and happenings on the AFC Con game as its leaders continue to target national projects for personal gains, and I'll be talking a lot on that this evening. And of course, David Granger. We believe he has no moral authority or any such authority to speak on the question of unemployment. Of course, tracking the record of the PNC, of which Granger himself is leader, and its dismal failure in the area of employment. And of course, the AFC Code of Conduct and what it means to Guyana. I believe certainly it means nothing other than an assurance we deserve as Guyanese from the AFC that its leaders will desist from targeting national projects for its personal gains. Those and more I'll be bringing you right here this evening on Square Talk, and then of course I'll be listening to you, our viewers across the country, your views and the many issues I'll be raising this evening. And of course, I'd like to hear your views as usual and your thinking on these issues. And of course, not forgetting the continued harassment of the town clerk by Hamilton Green, the mayor of the city of Georgetown, while the opposition, Granger and his rest of the opposition camp, turns a blind eye at such harassment of a female town clerk in the city of Georgetown by Hamilton Green. And of course, we know his history, and I will leave that there for now, but I'll be bringing you much more. It's Education Month, it's Amerindian Heritage Month. Of course, there is much to celebrate. We've been seeing the activities across the country celebrating and observing Education Month and of course Amerindian Heritage. Now today, Amerindians are better off than they ever were before in the history of this country under the PPP Civic Administration, and of course you'll be hearing more as we go through tonight's program. But let me start with the AFC Con game, and that Con game I talk about is a specific target by the AFC leaders who go after national projects, go after the principals or investors in these projects with the hope to cash down for their own personal gains from these projects. So what they do, every national project being pursued or undertaken by the PPP Civic Administration, the AFC targets them for criticisms and attacks. And then, in doing so, the AFC hopes to frighten these investors and to force them to hire its personnel and its leaders rather, so that they can ease the criticisms on these individuals who are investing. This is a pattern we have seen over and over, and tonight I will demonstrate to you how it has become a pattern and what are the different sequence of this pattern I speak about. Let's recall just recently the Site Global's affair, in which Nigel Hughes, the discovery, the revelation of Nigel Hughes and Kathy Hughes being contracted by Site Global. And you remember Site Global had came, and this is the company that invested in the Amila Hydro project, and it had came under severe criticisms from the AFC and its partner APNU. And so all these criticisms were aimed to do just what it did, force the investors to then work with the AFC to hire its leaders more or less. And then we saw suddenly an attempt by the AFC to ease the criticisms and the attacks on this particular company. And it was at that point when Mr. Ramjatan suddenly discovered that the AFC needed to support aspects of the hydropower bill, which was before the parliament. It is this kind of behavior by the AFC leaders who, I believe, we could only term as hustlers in these instances of targeting people and going after them by bullies to hire their executive and their leaders of the AFC. And so Site Global ended up hiring Kathy Hughes and Nigel Hughes of the AFC. They hired them at some approximately $3 million per month. Over $3 million per month they cashed down from these companies. And then the criticisms eased on the company after it, because these people were suddenly in the employ. And then it was on this discovery and revelation that Mr. Ramjitan decided that he had to support the company because of the employ of these two AFC leaders. And I want to tell you this, and because they know this, these are very smart, clever hustlers, I must say. Let me tell you why. Because just what I'm saying has become public information, and they're criticized, and the public outcry, the pressures by the public for this kind of unprofessional and immoral type of behavior by the AFC leaders, Mr. Nigel Hughes now appears to be talking against the project, but in ways that are safe because he's employed by them. So he wants to appear as being independent nevertheless, but it's all a con game. It's all a con game. And then when we did at the revelation, he pretended as though he wanted to resign and submitted some resignation, which none of us saw. None of us saw. But he pretended he was resigning and then withdraws it now after all of this seemed to have passed. He only pretended he was resigning at that time to ease the pressure off of him and to say, let's bring an end to the story, I'm resigning. But we saw what played out. And then the AFC suddenly couldn't find the code of conduct that they, at the beginning of their establishment as a party, we would recall that the AFC boastfully spoke about having code of conduct for its members and leaders. All of a sudden it didn't exist, and then they tried to cloud us and to divert attention from the real issue by saying, you know what, we're going to bring a code of conduct to guide our leaders. But let me tell you something. If in the first place the understanding of this kind of behavior is missing from the AFC leaders in terms of what it represents, and immorality wasn't there from the beginning, I don't understand how a code of conduct will now seek to guide. That's all a sham. It's a big, big sham. And let me tell you why it's a big sham. Because in the first place, the code of conduct is not clear. This thing that they now toss around to be pretending to be formulating a code of conduct to divert us and to throw wool over our eyes is not clear anyway. And so it is up to the AFC leaders to give us an assurance. We don't want code of conduct. We want an assurance that this kind of behavior, where the AFC leaders target investors in this country for big projects to cash down on them because it has personal interest and it's all interested in personal gains, its leaders that is, they must give us the assurance that its leaders will desist from attacking and criticizing national projects in an effort to force these investors to thereby hire their executive. You remember the FIT Motilal saga, where the opposition, AFC and APNU, went all over Mr. Motilal. They left, right, and center. They went after him. They chewed him days and nights. It was only when Mr. Motilal then hired Cathy Hughes as its public relations consultant that the criticisms by the AFC vanished. They no longer were interested in criticizing Mr. Phip Motilal. And Mr. Phip Motilal was a good boy. He suddenly became a good boy for the AFC because he had hired Cathy Hughes at huge sums to do his public relations consultancy. And so they stopped criticizing him. What happened to the Site Global issue? I just told you. They then suddenly supported the bill in Parliament because Nigel Hughes and Cathy Hughes were employed with this company. There are other instances. We have the evidence of what occurred with the specialty hospital. Mr. Ramjatan, hired by Feathers and Lloyd, was lobbying on the client's behalf, criticizing the company that got the bid to build the hospital, to construct aspects of the hospital, and was going after the company day after day because it was hired by Feathers and Lloyd to represent its interests. And Feathers Lloyd lost the bid, or did not made it through to the top of the bidding process, or was not given the contract, and so Mr. Ramjatan became more bitter, or even more bitter against this project. This is the kind of behavior. Lobbyist mentality, misuse, it's called extortion, an abuse and a misuse of one's privilege for personal gains. This is what we see happening among the AFC leaders. And then what happened with the Marriott Hotel project? Mr. Ramjatan, again, and the AFC, hook, line, and sinker, criticized the Marriott Hotel project in every aspect you could imagine, because subsequently we found out that the person who owns Pegasus finances the AFC and had endorsed the AFC at the last elections, and so it was in the AFC's interest to perform a lobbyist role, because it was seeking to protect Mr. Badal from further competition. And then what happened? We saw they tried with the Hope Canal, but they didn't get through there. They didn't get any of the persons contracted to do this Hope Canal on the East Coast to hire its executive, and who knows, you may see them in their employment, their payroll soon. But so far, they haven't got through with that one. The CJIA project, the expansion of the Cheddi Jagat International Airport. We saw the criticisms, and then we saw Moses Nagamutu escorting the Chinese national from the company contracted to do the airport project, escorting him to Mr. Raphael Trotman, who of course is part of the AFC leadership. And the rest I don't have to tell you, my friends. You are familiar and you are aware of the AFC con game on the Guyanese people. Those are some of the issues I wanted to raise with you this evening. Mr. Granger certainly has no authority to speak on this question of employment, because Mr. Granger, the opposition, killed the Amila Falls project, the hydro project. Killed it. A project that has the potential to employ so many Guyanese, hundreds of Guyanese, it killed. Our Amerindian brothers and sisters in the vicinity of the Amila Hydro project are denied of jobs because of the opposition and because of Mr. Granger. So don't let him appear to be any nice guy to us. As if he has any interest in seeking jobs on behalf of people or ensuring that people get jobs. If Mr. Granger was so interested in jobs being created, he would not have spearheaded the budget cuts in Parliament, which prevented projects from ongoing and projects with the potential of hiring and sustaining jobs. Mr. Granger would not have had the staff of the Guyana Information Agency up to a day like today without salaries. Mr. Granger would not have had all of the national projects they cut from the national budget stalled. Projects that have employment opportunities for our young people and others in this country. And then he has the temerity to suggest to us that he has some concern and he cares about the people of this country. The same Granger who is PNC leader, who is part of a legacy, part of a history of dismal failure in this country. What are we talking about? Where are we heading with this kind of nonsense coming from David Granger, who suggests to us and pretends to be a nice guy, when in fact he spearheads a lot of the wicked, spiteful, dangerous behavior we see coming out of Parliament and otherwise. Mr. David Granger is no gentleman as he appears in that green shirt. He is no gentleman. He doesn't care about the welfare of our young people as he pretends at this moment. If he did, then we would have had his support for the Amila Hydro project, his support for the LCDS that they cut out from the budget, his support for the CJIA project, his support for all of those national projects that they cut from the national budget with the potential of sustaining livelihoods and creating jobs. Also, if Mr. Granger had cared about any one of us in this country, he would not have denied GPL the subsidy that brings hardship on the people of this country. If it wasn't for President Ramatar, we would have been paying higher electricity bills today. But he has put it on hold for now, and God knows how much longer GPL can wait before it is in a safe position to continue giving us electricity. While the people in Linden gets electricity far, way cheaper than we could ever imagine here on the coast. And Mr. Granger didn't seek to take away the subsidy from Linden and then bring us on par. And if you want to be a national leader, then you have to look at issues of equity, equitable distribution of wealth and services, equitable burden. Mr. Granger isn't concerned about that. He is concerned, however, about putting hardship and bringing burden on the people of this country. Mr. Granger is no gentleman as he appears to be. And yes, if we talk about all of these issues and we look at the opposition's behavior, we have a good idea as to where they are and as to what they mean in terms of their actions. They are not concerned about seeing this country move forward. It's the only country in the world I have seen and I know where the opposition tries to block development, where the opposition stymies development, where the opposition takes bread out of people's mouth, where the opposition boasts of its might of a one-seat majority and in the process of derailing our democracy, where the opposition don't have any concern for the ordinary man and woman. When Mr. Ramjatan talks about the ordinary worker suffering as a result of the budget cuts being collateral damage. What sort of a leader are these people? Who are they catering for? Where their interest lies? What is their concern? Or where is their concern for the poor people? And they will tell you all kinds of stories, try to cockfull our minds and take us away from the real issues. They will try to make us believe that here in Guyana, nothing ever happened. Nothing happens that are of a positive nature. They will try to bring all sorts of stories to you just as a way of distracting us from the real issues. But I am here to let you know what those issues are. And I'm here to show the spotlight on what is taking place in our country by the opposition, by any other person or group of persons. Because at the end of the day, my job is to educate and to bring information to you, our viewers out there, right across the country. I want us to understand that this is not all about seeking to make the opposition look bad. This is not the idea. The idea is to have you understand what is being played out. Because many people in the business sector tells me that, you know what, this sort of behavior by the opposition really has a negative effect on business out there in our country. It was Mr. Robin Stobie, the chairman of the Guyana Bank of Trade and Industry. And if you ask me who Mr. Robin Stobie is, a good attorney at law, and Mr. Stobie is part of the Hughes, Fields and Stobie law firm. And Mr. Stobie himself says that what was taking place in Parliament had a negative effect, an impact on what was taking place in the banking sector. He is the chairman of the GBTI. In other words, and he made reference to the budget cuts. So in other words, what Mr. Stobie is saying, that if we didn't have budget cuts, if we didn't have an opposition creating the mischief and rancor, as it were, in the National Assembly, then we would have a better prospect, we would have better returns, we would have better business environment in this country. We mustn't miss that for 1 second. This is the opposition for you. And of course, you are viewers across the country. I'll be taking your calls and I'll ask you to keep the volume of your television set down as you attempt to get through to us here in the studio. And please be as brief as possible, because I would like to allow as many callers as possible to come through the telephone line. So I will go to our first caller for this evening, and of course I will appreciate if you can stick to the issues I've raised in my opening, and let's have a discourse this evening on these issues. We seem to have a caller here on the line. Missed that one. 226-3310 is the number to call, and we do have a caller here. Good evening.
Yeah, good evening, sir.
Yes.
I'll be trying to most to get you on. I don't get your call. Here,
Yes.
I got a question. You know this man, Gulsuran?
Which Gulsuran?
Anand Gulsuran. He used to be an Auditor General.
Oh, he's a opposition. He's no longer Auditor General. He's opposition activist.
No, he used to.
Okay, right. Yes.
Yeah, but I want to know what he added to the PLC time, because Mr. Major never said anything to it. So what he added?
Yeah.
You won't get the work started as well if the PC come to government.
Yes.
Then he started That's the question I want to.
All right, thank you.
If he could answer that to me anytime.
Or we'd love to have him. And I'd love if Mr. Anand Gulsaran can call through the line and answer your question. It would be fascinating to have him here because as I'm aware, Mr. Gulsaran, the caller is correct because the audits during the PNC time were suspended. We didn't have audits for many years. Mr. Carl Greenidge, who was finance minister at that time, we know the history. We know that Mr. Greenidge was fine and he's now part of the APNU. He's one of its lead members, a man who presided over the worst period of economic mismanagement in this country, is in the top rank of the opposition, just as Mr. Granger is in terms of being part of the PNC, as he claimed, for 40 years, and while he was in the army. And Mr. Granger was all part of that period in which we had the Burnhamite dictatorship and in which we had a situation in this country in which we could not see the light of day because of the PNC rule dictatorship. And the caller is right, because at the end of the day, we have a man in the person of Mr. Carl Greenidge who parade today around the parliament and other parts of Guyana unashamedly. And a man who presided over the worst period of economic mismanagement in this country. And these people have no shame altogether. But Mr. Anand Gulsaran, he's now an opposition activist. You can see him faithfully carrying the AFC lines and the opposition lines. So when they say something, he comes out and he massages it. And so he tries to put it into context and he expands on it and he brings it into a certain lane and so forth. So that's the job he's doing now, an opposition activist in the person of Anand Gulsaran. Good evening.
Hello?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
Yes.
This is Asif from West Coast.
Go ahead, please.
You have a serious problem in Stouffville.
You have a problem in Stewartville. Could you call me after the program? Let me take the notes. Let me take, yes.
The road and the drainage.
Okay, sir. Those kinds of issues I'll take after the program, if you don't mind. Call me after the program and we can deal with that, all right?
Okay.
Thank you very much for coming through. 226-3310 is the number to call. Don't forget to turn the volume of your television set down as you attempt to get through to us here at the studio. We have another caller here on the line.
Good evening. I was listening to you.
Sure.
Right, and I think the opposition, I don't know what the opposition wants crystal clear democracy. It's not that I got to find out from Trinidad what's happening in Guyana. Right? And if you want to list NCN, the same thing with Trinidad. Trinidad got LV and somebody else got carried. And I think more people would back the proposition if they move from a blue democracy to crystal clear or polka democracy. Thank you.
Well, I would love for you to stay on the line. Hello? Well, I'm not sure what the caller means to crystal clear democracy, because the opposition itself, being part of the parliament, being there with a one-seat majority, which it boasts about, have the opportunity to contribute to the furtherance of our democracy. Have the opportunity, but in fact, what we see every single day in the parliament, the opposition is derailing the democratic process, is introducing illegal bills and seeking to run the government from the parliament with all sorts of illegality. That's what is of greater concern to the people of Guyana. Good evening.
Hello, good evening.
Yes, good evening.
Mr. McCoy.
Yes, go ahead, please.
I'd like to ask you a question.
Sure.
What is it this government ever have done for the way to thank you.
What it has done for what? Hello? Hello? What the government has ever done for poor people in the country? I don't even have to hear probably, even though I didn't hear the last end of what he said, I suggest that it sounded like he said poor people, but even if it wasn't exactly that he said, any question any caller asks about in terms of what this government has done deserves an answer simple and straight, as the government of Guyana, the PPP Civic Administration, for its 21 years since presiding over the governance of this country, has done everything. Well, I wouldn't say everything. Let me put it this way: has done so much and much more than has ever been done in the history of any other party in this country. Good evening.
Hi, good evening, Kwame.
Good evening.
Yes, I would like to know something. Everything that you've been saying is absolutely true. But I would like to know about the little boy you were molesting.
You would like to know about the little boy you were molesting? I wouldn't know about that. You have to tell me about the boys you were molesting. I wouldn't know about any boys you were molesting. Eric, and I'm happy the caller started off by saying everything that I've said is true. And I'm happy that she recognizes that I'm only here to tell the truth and nothing about it and nothing other than the truth. All right? Yes, we have the caller calling back. Let me have some clarity in what he meant. Good evening.
All right, I'm back on.
Yes, let me hear what I didn't hear you properly. Yes.
It's a high percent of transparency,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because NCN,
Mm-hmm.
right, with that guy who disappeared, and you're looking into it. Two, with that hijacking of radio stations where I think it should have been open to everybody, not only friends and cronies. So when I'm talking about I'm talking about high-class democracy, right? So, what else you would like to find out about
Stay online for me.
Yeah.
Stay online. You're talking about transparency in terms of NCN. Let me first of all say, this government has no interest in hiding the truth from anyone. This government has been pursuing accountability from its inception. It was myself and others on the NCN board that pursued what at that time was never in the public domain. We pursued allegations and suspicions that turned out to be malpractice by two officers of the NCN, and they were subsequently disciplined. Well, they were all disciplined, in fact. And I don't know about who disappeared. Hold on. I listened to you. I don't know about who disappeared, who didn't disappear. I'm not aware of that. What I know is that we took action. So it wasn't left up to anyone else. It was the board of directors that pursued an investigation, called in assistance, and furthered the investigations and dealt with the matter. Secondly, you asked about the question of what is the second part? I forgot.
Before I go to the second part, right? I thought if you were a part of that board, right, you would have known that in the sense of the president, and up to now, nobody can get a reply.
I don't know what you're talking about. You are misguided. You were misguided because the opposition had a copy of that report from the investigation. So I don't know what you're talking, and I am saying the opposition has a copy of it.
The second thing I was talking about how the airways would hijack.
Secondly, okay, I don't know what you mean by hijack. We have a propensity. We have a propensity in this country to misuse words.
I mean certain people.
I am saying we have a propensity in this country for the misuse of words, and we just like to sound nice without understanding. Comrade, we like to sound nice without understanding what the words mean. First of all, listen to me. You don't have to break that down for me. I am not at nursery school level. I want you to understand, first of all, that, and I can list the people that got license. So if you say Mr. Graham from Linden is a crony of the PPP, if you say Hits and Jams, if you say Eddie Grant is a crony of the PPP, and all of these people, then thank you very much. Because they all got licensed in the same process. So you are misguiding yourself, and you allow yourself to be taken away by a few people who are disgruntled because they themselves did not acquire license. But the process cannot treat with every single person that applies. Thank you very much for coming through. I've given you more than your time on air. Thank you. 226-3310 is the number to call. Don't forget to turn the volume of your television set down as we attempt to get through to us here at the studio. Good evening.
Look. Let's go fast. Hello?
Yes, good night.
Hi, good night. I would like you to tell the public in Bonham era which minister has ever built big house, own the water car, own a Pradoville in Bonham era.
Well, let me tell you, they all had access. In fact, they all, the Corbins and others, you know, they got big, do you know how many? Well, let me don't call names because they might want to sue me. But let me tell you, all of the PNC leaders who got islands in the Essequibo River, they own. How much they own in the Demerara River up Linden. How much property they own. And you, I don't think, it's a question you're asking. And I suppose that you don't know that you're asking. I hope it is a case where you don't know. And not that you're trying to suggest here to us. Listen, you're not trying to suggest here to us that the PNC era was an era in which you had any sort of moderacy in terms of how they utilize state funds. Because when a minister was traveling, he carried his whole family, their friends, neighbors, and everybody else. The budget of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs was higher than the budget for education, health, and other social services. So I don't know what you're trying to get at. And certainly, I am saying as well that you don't expect in this day and age that it is impracticable for a minister or any government official. Why is it every other person in this country can access wealth and development except the PPP people must not have wealth and development?
Yes, because
legitimately earn? Legitimate? You talking crap. You talking crap because many of these people, what you call facts, what you suggest?
That's what I'm telling you right now.
Well, you bring the facts here in writing. Bring it in writing, come next Tuesday and let's present it right here on air.
You only hearing and seeing up to your nose.
Yeah, well, wherever you want to suggest. But I am saying, at the end of the day, once people acquire wealth legitimately, so it is okay for the Nigel Hugheses and the Corbins and all the others to acquire wealth under the PPP as they did, because their best years of success ever in their life was under the PPP Civic Administration. Sharma building how many houses? Sharma building how many houses every day? How many property he owns around the country? It is okay for them to get rich, except the PPP people. It is okay for everyone else to get rich and to pursue development and wealth, except those who belong to the PPP, the supporters and others. Well, I beg you, sir, you are totally misguided. You have a view that is totally out of whack, because not in a country where development is taking place, you are suggesting that people who are supporters of the PPP should not enjoy the success of development. I don't understand. And in fact, it brings me to something that I've always argued about. A fundamental problem with those of the ilk of the caller who just called is that they have a problem with the ordinary man and woman getting a car like them, having a car that looks like the one they have, or a house that looks as fancy as the one they have. How many, you want to tell me all those people in Diamond, Tushin, Parafaith, Eccles, they're all in part of the government? Those people with big houses, they're part of the government? Many of the opposition people succeeded under this administration, succeeded the best time of their years ever. The best success they've ever had is under the PPP Civic. Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
Yes.
I'd like to ask, why do you have to behave like that on the air? I mean, are you calling or you
Behave what?
speaking to the people there?
What is your point?
Time now for peace. We don't want this type of thing right now.
What am I, what is,
You're not giving nobody else a chance to say anything. It's going and going.
well, how come you talking if you're not having a chance?
No, good night and thank you.
Good night and thank you too. How come you have a chance to speak if nobody else has a chance? If I don't understand, it doesn't mesh up. 226-3310 is the number to call. Don't forget to turn the volume of your television set down. Good evening.
Good night, sir.
Yes, good night.
Yes, like the people want me the dark days again.
What is that?
They want me the dark days again under the PNC.
Well,
Right? They should remember the dark days.
Well,
so
they
that
said-
they forget it.
they said we have done nothing for our years in government.
You see the people trying to get big house, all the place, by stone. People living happy now. They want the dark days. They take the money, kind of party, drinking them all about, and want the government look after them, give them everything free. Huh?
Okay. All right, thank you for your point.
Yes, and the next thing, why the opposition was talking to the mayor, George Strong, they say nothing. What George Strong?
Yes, I know. They ignore the situation in Georgetown
Yes, why
because
they don't tell Green straight?
Hamilton Green is an executive member of the party, so
I know that, but why they don't say something about it? Okay, then thank you.
thank you. 226-3310 is the number to call. Let's continue to listen to our viewers across the country. We have another caller here on the line. Good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, good evening.
The gentleman just now spoke about Georgetown. But I think is Carol Sobers, is she in charge of everything? I'm not see what she's doing.
Okay. The city of Georgetown is run by the mayor and councillors.
But
They
she's
all
not
done.
listening to the councillor. She's not doing what the councillor has to say. She's
My-
doing her own thing.
My understanding is that Carol Sober is the administrative head of the city council.
Yeah.
The city council, mayor and city councilors are elected by the people to run the affairs of the city. And what you are suggesting to me is that they are not getting her cooperation. But I don't see why Ms. Suba should cooperate in a situation where the mayor is seeking to have his friends and family not pay taxes. She is trying to safeguard the corruption that is to protect the city council from further corruption practices that we've seen in the past. And she is trying to prevent the mayor from putting his hands in the coffers. And so if you call that non-cooperation, then I wish we have more Carol Sobers, much more. I prefer the one Carol Sober than 100 Hamilton Greens. Thank you very much for coming through. 226-3310 is the call. 226-3310 is the number to call. Let's continue to our listeners across the country. I prefer the one Carol Sober than 100 Hamilton Greens. All right? Good evening.
Morning, good night.
Yes,
Hello?
I'm hearing you.
Yes, good night, Tom. You called me, I'd like to answer a couple of questions for you. One of the caller who was calling tonight asked what the PUP has done for the poor people in Guyana. Let me help you refresh his memory. That there's 100,000 house lots in Guyana so far. Maybe he's out of paying attention to current affairs. There's 107,000 house lots. There's a bridge across the Burbage River. There's a stadium, an aquatic center. There's a synthetic track. Just to name a few. And there's also the Amalia Falls hydropower that the opposition just destroyed this country with. There's also the Marriott ongoing. There's also the cutting of the specialty hospital. There's also the non-supporting of the Teddy Jacobs National Airport. I wonder if the caller is still listening.
I hope he is.
I hope he's still listening.
Okay.
No, one thing people must be real about. That no longer those persons who live at places like Sophia and these places has to walk through the Jewish things and these things. These people got their own vehicles. They no longer are squatters. They are being regularized. They got their own. They got places that they can live for the children and so on. These things must be told. Currently, there's a massive bridge going to join East, North and South Georgetown. These are things people must be honest about. Let's be real honest. Don't go out there and be like the Hamis and these people, you know. Let the truth be told.
Okay.
Let these people understand that at a place of the Demawara River, there is a big 3-story building lies with wooden ants that was constructed in 1984 by Robert Corbett. So a lot of people come and say that there was not this and this thing. Robert Corbett and all these people had their way in that time.
Yeah.
They would not remember Stella what her name was.
Yeah.
Why? They lose their memory all of a sudden?
Okay. All right. Thank you, caller. Thank you very much for coming through and
I hope a lot of people
for reminding us of some of these achievements.
I know that the Pacific administration has taken this country forward and upwards. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for reminding us of some of these achievements. But you know, of course, not everyone is compatible with truth. Some people have a problem with truth being told. Some people don't like to hear the truth. Some people can't utter truth. So I always remember that as a way, in terms of guiding me, in terms of what to expect from some people coming through these telephone lines, and particularly after so many years of doing this program. It is nothing strange to hear callers such as the one that suggests that nothing was done in Ghana, nothing of value, nothing of importance, nothing that impacted on the lives of Guyanese. Then, what I pity, if that person has children, I pity their future. I pity their future. Good evening.
Hi, Mr. Bobby. Good night.
Yes.
What do you think that to get a house, not?
If I can help you to have a house lot, you ever applied?
Yeah. Over 4 years now.
Okay, well, the applications are in stages based on the years the application was made. What you need to do is call me after the program, all right?
On what number?
The same number.
Okay.
Thank you. 226-3310 is the number to call. Don't forget to turn the volume of your television set down. We have another caller here. Just said it. It happened. Good evening.
Good night.
I'll have to take you off. 226-3310 is the number to call. Let's continue to listen to our viewers across the country. Please turn the volume of your television set down as you attempt to get through to us here in the studio. And it would appear as though we have another caller here on the line. Good evening. Hello? All right. Might have missed that one. 226-3310. Yeah, so I'm happy that last caller, sorry, not the one just before the young lady just now, was able to throw the highlight to remind us about some of the things that we achieved. And of course, that in nowhere close to the volume, because we know of how many health huts and health posts. Look where the Amerindians are today in terms of development. look the achievement they have made in the time of the PBP Civic administration. Good evening.
Good night, Tommy.
Good night.
I commend the caller that called before and told the truth. PPP administration has done a whole lot for us Chinese, and I'm one of the grateful ones.
Okay, thank you
I
very much.
am living over the river.
Okay,
The concern that I have is the Demerara Harbor Bridge.
okay.
That is one of the main ports for us to get to and from.
Yeah, I know it's difficult sometimes, but you know we're looking at a new crossing. There are several studies being undertaken at the moment, and within the next few years, maybe earlier than I think, we will have some kind of forward movement in terms of developing a new crossing for the Demerara Harbor Bridge. I know there has been talk about tunnels and all kinds of different options going to help people traverse to and fro. So yes, we are looking at that. It's an
And I
important.
think the administration needs to look in at the concern with the spelling. The spelling is in a deplorable situation.
Yeah, I know. Well, yes. So that too.
Because when it's raining, it's very hard for you to walk on those steep steps to get into the boat, the speedboat.
Okay. All right. So yes, that's something that I think could do with some improvement as well. Yes.
And another thing, I have applied for a computer through the One Laptop for Family program. And to date, I have not gotten through.
Well, there are many people who haven't gotten through. They're still processing applications. They still have, it's a lot of work in terms of verifying the persons who applied, ensuring that no other member of their family had gotten before, ensuring, trying to authenticate the information and so forth. So they are working, I can tell you, they're working tirelessly. And of course, they're meeting other people every day. So I want to believe at some point you should be able to get through once they have determined you eligible. I hope you'll be able to get through soon. All right.
Okay,
Thank you very much. 226-3310 is the number to call. Don't forget to turn the volume of your television set down before you get through to us here in the studio. Hello, good evening. Yes, good evening. You're on to Square Talk. Hello? Hello? Your volume, please. You'd have to take you off the air. All right. 226-3310 is the number to call. The AFC Con game. Again, we need to ensure. Well, let me put it this way. We need the assurance from the AFC leaders that they will stop targeting national projects for personal gains, where they target the investors with criticisms and attacks with the hope of forcing them into hiring the executives of the AFC. And then they make big money, like we see what has happened in the case of Site Global, where Nigel Hughes and Kathy Hughes are in the employ and contracted by this company. The AFC is suddenly given support to aspects of the Amylifol hydropower bill, when in fact they were criticizing this project all along. But suddenly, in the discovery of this contracted to by the company, which are the users, the AFC ceases its criticism. Today it's trying to hoodwink us and to pull some wool over our eyes and to suggest that they still have some kind of independence. So Nigel Hughes here and there is trying to come in not full, not trying to give a jerk, I can still criticize and etc. etc. And we know that this is all a con game. Good evening. Yes.
I want to call concern about the house land. I put in for 5.
Okay, could you call me after the program about all those problems you may have with house lots and so forth? Call me after the programs because I have to get details that I can't take on air. openly, right?
10?
Sorry?
Same number?
The same number. Thank you. 2263310 is the number to call. Let's continue to listen to our views across the country. Good evening.
Hey, Kwame, how are you?
I'm okay.
You're looking good.
All right.
Kwame, I'm not a politician. I believe that we all come from a creator. If you call it God, Allah, whosoever, whysoever it is, we got a creator. And during our problems, our sicknesses, our financial needs, we all look to that creator. When we go left, we go to the hospital, people pray to that creator for betterment. You know that. And I believe what should happen, instead of being, tired hearing what this body and that body, you all need to come together and seek the face of God. This is the only way this country and other country around this world could ever move. The Bible said, or the Gita, or the Ramayana, or the Quran, call upon, if it's Allah, if upon Rama, Sita, if upon God, whosoever, call upon the unseen supreme being, and then you take trash out with matter. We are going nowhere, my brother.
Okay.
All
right. Thank you very much, caller. And I think that indeed that's refreshing. And indeed, it's by the presence of the Lord and Savior that has the PPP in where it is today in power. The people of Ghana supported the PPP and they've been guided, in a particular way by, spiritually and otherwise. We have to understand that yes, we know God is important and we endeavor at every possible opportunity to have God in our presence and to ensure that He remains our guiding principle, our guider and protector. But that apart, you have a situation in which the government makes every attempt to work for unity, to include the civic society, stakeholders, call them what you will, different groupings from across this country. Involve them in the national development plans and agenda. We consult, we include, we try to work together, we compromise in many instances. But you still have another side of the coin. You have a situation where the opposition uses or misuses its one-seat majority for all sorts of wickedness. And that's the source of all the rancor and the contention and the tensions that exist in our society today. If it wasn't for the opposition and its spiteful, vindictive, notorious behavior, we would not be where we are today. We would have had a faster pace of development. We would have recorded further than 3.9% growth rate in the half-year reporting period, because you would have had investors coming in this country more than they are at the moment. But when you're going to chase away investors from this country, as the opposition did with Blackstone and Site Global, as they did with others, by creating consternations, burning down places, harassing people, targeting people for abuse, these are turn off to investors. We could have been much farther than we are today. We must not forget, if we have those type of behavior existing in our society, where the opposition threatens people, beat them up, burn down places, chase away investors, this is some of the results we will have. They will slow down development, because we had projected further than 3.9% growth rate at the half-year reporting period. But because of all that took place, in Parliament, if that Amila Fall project alone had gone through, that was so much, would have been a big plus for the economy. But I don't think that you have an opposition that is concerned really about about the development of this country. It has a particular type of behavior that puts us into bad light and take away from the efforts at bringing our people together and moving our country forward in the way we ought to. So we must keep that at the back of our heads. Good evening.
Hi, good evening, Kwame. How are you doing?
I'm okay. Go ahead.
I'm calling concerning the roads in Sophia.
Or could you call me about roads after the program, because I would have to take details, right?
Okay, sir.
Yes. So generally those kind of calls I ask you to come after the program.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'll take just one more call before we go on tonight's program. This will be the final call. We have a call here. Good evening.
Hello, good night.
Good night.
Calling on behalf of Red Road. You have a terrible road.
Call me after the program to give me that report, because I have to take notes. All right? Thank you. All right. All right, I guess I'll have to end tonight's program here. I want to thank you, our viewers across the country, for having tuned in on tonight's program. For, of course, sharing your views with us through the telephone lines. And, of course, I'll be back with you next Tuesday right here on NTN for another edition of Square Talk. In the meantime, God bless you and see you next Tuesday.